Fishing trips anywhere, anytime. FishingBooker.com. Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy. Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
The story of the kebab is the story of fire, meat, and ingenuity, while the word kebab most often conjures images of skewered lamb sizzling over glowing coals or juicy doner shaved off a vertical spit. The culinary tradition behind it is far older, far wider, and more diverse than most people imagine, with roots in ancient civilizations and strong ties to the wild meat of the hunt. Today, we're diving into what Anthony Bourdain lovingly called stuff on a stick. We'll explore the history, provide tips and tricks for making better kebabs, and get into the nitty-gritty of using wild game, fish, and forageables. And, like always, we've got some exciting recipes for you to try. So fire up the grill, get those skewers soaking, and let's get into it.
Join Justin Townsend and the Harvesting Nature crew as they explore the world of cooking wild fish and game while sharing recipes, tips, tricks, and lessons learned from their pursuit of wild food. We sure hope you ate before the show, 'cause you're gonna leave hungry. This is the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
This episode, we're diving into one of the oldest, most universally loved cooking techniques, the kebab. But we're not talking about standard skewered chicken from the grocery store. No. We're not. We're exploring kebabs made with wild ingredients. Let's think about marinated venison, goose breast, wild boar, and even foraged wild mushrooms. This isn't just meat on a stick. It's a primal, fire-kissed celebration of what the land provides. Kebabs made with wild game and wild harvested ingredients are where ancient traditions meet modern outdoor cooking. They invite you to experiment with cuts, marinades, and textures in ways that showcase the true flavor of the hunt or the harvest. There's something deeply satisfying about threading your own wild meat or fish or forageables onto a skewer and grilling it over open flame and tasting the honest, smoky result. We won't be getting into the vertical side of things today, like shawarma or gyros. I don't know, there's so many different ways to pronounce it. We're just going to save that for another episode, and we're going to focus on a horizontal version of kebabs. So this is perfect if you've got a freezer full of elk or if you've just picked a handful of chanterelles from the woods. This episode is loaded with ideas to elevate your wild kebab game, from skewer selection and marinating tips to grilling tips and pairing ideas. We're covering it all. But first thought, let's get into where it all began, the history of kebab. Adam, take us away.
Well, the concept of roasting meat over an open flame, unsurprisingly, predates recorded human history. People have been doing it pretty much forever. In fact, archaeological findings suggest that as early as 300,000 years ago, early humans were cooking wild animals over fire. So they'd be skewering meat onto sticks, roasting it in pits, laying it across embers. While maybe not kebabs as we know them today, these prehistoric meals were laying the groundwork for what would become a worldwide obsession. Kebabs can be found pretty much in every cuisine across the world. The earliest reference to skewered meat in literature comes from Homer's Iliad, which is about 8th century BCE, where he talks about pieces of meat roasted on spits, and it's mentioned a lot in the Greek warrior camps along the during the Trojan War. Ancient Persians, Greeks, and Mesopotamians were among the first to formalize the preparation of spitted meats. And then across the Middle East and Central Asia, it was common for hunters and nomads to roast cuts of wild meat, wild goat, gazelle, boar, wild fowl, over open fires, often seasoned simply with salt, herbs, or sometimes cool fermented marinades. Just been happening forever. The term kebab comes from Arabic, which itself likely derives from maybe Aramaic or Persian, meaning to burn or to fry. In medieval Persia, kebabs became popular with the nobles in courtly cuisine, and massive banquets featured various kebab styles made from lamb, beef, chicken, and wild game like partridge or venison. They would often be served with fragrant rice like pilafs and pickled vegetables and flatbreads. But it wasn't just the rich eating them. Nomadic Turkic peoples also embraced the kebab, particularly in Central Asia and Anatolia. So, like Turkey, modern-day Turkey, and all the stands. And the cooking method really suited their migratory lifestyle because these nomads kind of moved all over the place. So wild meats were very popular, including wild rabbit, quail, ibex, and even horses in a lot of the regions. Meat was skewered and grilled over small portable hearths. So they would bring the actual grill kind of hibachi style thing with them. This style was brought westward by the Seljuks and Ottomans, and it evolved further into Europe and then was spread across through colonization. The Ottoman Empire, which spanned from Eastern Europe all the way to the Middle East and North Africa, played a critical role in standardizing and spreading kebab culture. They were the kebab masters. By the 18th century, shish kebab was a signature dish in the area, once again served with pilaf and flatbread, just like way back in the day. Wild meats remained in rotation, depending on the season and the region, of course. So like wild duck, hare, and game birds were very popular on rural menus, especially in the Balkans and in Anatolia. As the Ottoman influence spread across the world, so did kebab variants. So, in Greece, souvlaki developed, and souvlaki in the Levant around like Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, kofta, which is like a ground meat kebab, heavily spiced, and shawarma, which is like the rotating vertical spits, became very popular. In India, the Mughal emperors, who were known as keen hunters, they loved hunting, brought Persian-style kebabs to the subcontinent of India, incorporating local spices and wild boar, antelope, and even peacock into the high courts. This gave rise to dishes like shami kebabs, sikh kebabs, and bodhi kebabs, many of which were made from game meat before being adopted to domestic animals today. Also, sometime around 1700 CE in Japan, yakitori became increasingly popular. And at the time, Buddhist beliefs prohibited eating and growing livestock at the time. So the only things that were allowed in the religious beliefs to be eaten were birds like sparrows and quail who had negative effects on rice paddies. So those were often skewered whole or in parts and brushed with sauce and grilled, giving rise to today's chicken yakitori. Today, kebabs are a global food phenomenon from think Berlin's late night doner to American backyard kebabs to West African suya, all the way to Chinese Xinjiang lamb skewers. They're just all over the whole world. And really the core appeal remains the same, simplicity, fire, and flavor. Most modern kebabs use domestic meats, but wild game is experiencing a resurgence among chefs, foragers, adventurous cooks. It's getting really big again, which is really cool to see. And in some international, indigenous, and rural communities, the wild game kebabs have never gone out of style. So in places like Mongolia, skewered wild mutton or horse meat cooked over dung fires is still common. Northern Scandinavia, the Sami people grill reindeer kebabs. Sub-Saharan Africa, there's bushmeat kebabs all over, from antelope to guinea fowl, and I've had some down there. It's really good. They could just be found on roadside grills still. So, they're everywhere, which is awesome. Kebabs are more than just a grilled meat. They're a symbol of how food adapts to landscape, human necessity, and culture. It's been with us from the very beginning. From ancient hunters to Persian palaces to Ottoman war camps, modern food trucks. Kebabs have always been a bridge between the wild and the refined. Whether cooked with lamb, beef, or venison, the kebab continues to be a delicious reminder that sometimes the simplest methods yield the very richest of results. Talking about cooking methods, let's get into some tips and tricks for making kebabs. Justin, you want to take it off from here?
I think that kebabs are underlying like the sleeper recipe that's like, as you mentioned, been around for hundreds and thousands of years. And it's crazy to think about that no matter where you go in the world, there's some version of like meat on a stick.
Yeah,
And
always.
And I think it's really cool too that adaptation is usually what people throw under like the category of like street food of like, hey, what's the quickest preparation we can do? Well, we can get some coals going. Fire's relatively cheap. We can put some meat, usually like some kind of cuts that have been tenderized or marinated or whatever, pounded the hell out of until they're edible or cut into little chunks that are bite size. And then we're going to put it on the closest object we can find laying around next to us, which is likely a stick. And then we're going to sell that for a couple of bucks in a food stall or a food truck or off a cart. And I think it's very cool because there's a representation of just the migration of food writ large, and just that cooking style being so very human, like very cool, very natural, and very fun, and very open to different types of methods, like flavors and sauces and all that. But as I mentioned, its very base is the skewer. So this method would not be so without that. So choosing the right skewer is very important for making kebabs. Make sure that you have even cooking, that you prevent the food from slipping into the fire or burning, and it helps maintain the structure and flavor of your ingredients. Throughout my time in life, I've used various apparatuses to cook with, ranging from sugarcane to metal spikes to tree branches to string hanging over the fire to metal chains, but there are largely many different things you can use to skewer your meat or hold your meat over the fire, but the most common you're going to find are metal or bamboo. And so let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of both of these. So your metal skewers, those are typically they're either round or square or flat, and they're durable, they're reusable. I'd be sure you check to see what kind of metal they're made out of. That's going to be important because some are more conductive than others. And this also will help your food cook from the inside as well as the outside as it heats up and distributes heat as well. The flat or wider skewers will prevent your food from spinning when turned. So we've all had that before, where you've got probably your standard like kebab roll, which is like your meat, bell pepper, mushroom, whatever, on a combination, which we'll talk about that in a little bit later as a tip or trick. But you're like turning and you can never get that mushroom to turn over, and it always just stays in the same spot. And those flat or wide skewers will help you in that. The metal skewers are ideal for heavier meats and mixed kebabs, as I just mentioned. Stainless steel is probably one of your most popular ones because that one is rust resistant. It's pretty easy to clean. It doesn't stain. It doesn't warp. It can handle the higher heat. Just be careful when you're cooking with the metal kebabs because they can get very hot. So use gloves or tongs despite the ease of just grabbing that looped piece of metal and flipping it over.
Which I think I have a loop scar on my thumb from
Do
that.
you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So use gloves.
You know, they say scars are like tattoos, but with better stories. Although, flipping kebabs.
It's not that great of a story.
It's like you see the folks with like the pizza oven burns on their arm. You're like, man, what happened? And you're like, well, I worked at a pizza shop for 10 years. It's like, that's fair. So let's talk a little bit about wooden or bamboo skewers. So these are generally found hanging in that like weird middle grocery store aisle like hanging section, I find, and usually packs of like 1,000, it seems like, and you only ever need like 6, and then you're stuck with these 1,000 skewers for the rest of your life because no one can possibly use 1,000 skewers. I think I've cooked like dinners, big plate dinners, and used wooden skewers and still not used an entire packet of them. I think they just keep multiplying.
Yeah, mine are in all my like miscellaneous drawer. Just take up all the space and they poke me when I dig in there. Yeah, I've had the same ones probably for like 12 years now.
I think they multiply like Dollar General stores.
Yeah.
So, for these They're easy. They're fairly easy to use. The one caveat is you want to soak them in water for at least 30 minutes before grilling, and this will prevent burning. I have scorched many a bamboo or wooden skewer down to charcoal, so you don't want to do that because then all your items will fall in the fire. But these are best for small or quick cooking, so marinated chunks of meat, thinly sliced vegetables, tender cuts. Yeah, it's not great when they break and your meat falls in the fire. It's sad. Shed a little tear. But they're great for single-use events or lighter grilling needs, especially, too, if you need to be able to dispose of things, or you can just toss them back in the fire and they will burn up and not require trash. So they're less sturdy than metal, but they may not support heavier or unevenly sized ingredients. That's true. I think I've had some snap on me before, or have easily overloaded them. One tip to prevent that is to use 2 parallel skewers, and this will work for delicate or slippery ingredients, but also if you've got a little heavier ingredients on there, you could add a couple in to help. I just picture immediately in my mind like a long string of meat with like 6 skewers poked in it. I think that's a bit overboard. Maybe it's time to upgrade from the bamboo to the metal, but you could probably still get away with it.
I found for shrimp that's really good for that. The double, because the shrimp always like to spin around.
Oh, yeah. You want to choose a skewer length based on your grill size and your portion needs. So I always try to portion per person, generally what I think a person's going to eat, because it's always weird coming back and like having a plate full of skewers and you're like, I just want to take a couple off this and then all that. But I think investing in skewers is one of those things that I think it's good for everybody to do. I've been on the fence about it for a while, but I'm looking at those stainless steel flat skewers just because they've got good durability and control. And really, I like the handles and kind of all the different things that come with it. But there are so many variations out there. And then I've seen like a lot of techniques where even in restaurants or food stalls, whatever, they'll take their skewers and they'll put them in one of those wire baskets that like claps together, and then they use that to turn it over versus actually like turning individual skewers, which I think is really cool. It helps potentially eliminate some of the loss that you would incur. But there are definitely different types to use. I don't know, Adam, do you have a favorite?
I definitely like the metal ones. I'm kind of lazy and kind of a last minute person, so I never soak the bamboo ones long enough, and I always burn them to a char. So I'm just better off using the metal ones. I actually picked up some like kind of sword style ones from a Middle Eastern grocery. And you can find it at Turkish or Persian or Middle Eastern grocers. And they're pretty cheap. They're like a couple bucks, and they're like a long, thin sword with a wooden handle. And I have some that are about the width of my pinky finger and some that are thicker than my thumb for different types of meat. And I find they're just awesome. I just love them. You can use them over a fire, over a grill. You can put like ground meat on it, just flat, so it kind of can hold it better.
Those are cool.
And then the only thing is you're not going to be giving one to each person. So if you're like, I usually just kind of like take all the meat off the skewer and put it into a plate for everyone to choose from. So you lose a little bit of the cool vibe of giving everyone an individual skewer. But I like cooking with those a lot better.
There's all kinds of cool. I'm just looking on Etsy right now. There's all kinds of cool vintage like skewers on here. Or here's one that's like handmade by a blacksmith, and it's got all these cool little twists and turns on the end of it. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, there's so many options out there. You can find the exact one that fits your grill and your lifestyle.
I mean, when truth comes to it, like you can just use a stick. I've used sugarcane before. I've taken sugarcane and cut it down into like mostly thin strips, maybe like, I don't know, I'd say 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, and put food on there like chicken and stuff. That was pretty good. But really it's largely dependent on kind of the different proteins or vegetables you're using. I don't know, what are your thoughts on different types of proteins and the best choices for kebabs?
The best protein for kebabs, usually you want to stick to kind of lean, fast cooking cuts. So you're thinking like poultry breast, tenderloin, loin, or round cuts from mammals, firm, meaty chunks of fish. You don't want flaky fish. It's just going to fall apart, obviously, on you. So you want something that's going to be kind of keep its shape while you're grilling. I like to try to avoid huge cubes of meat. And when you go to the grocery store, that's often how they sell kebabs. These massive, stupid cuts of meat that are like from like a cross-cut whatever. And
the leg steak.
Yeah, they're chewy and they're huge and they kind of dry out. And you're like, when you're chewing on a piece of meat and you can't swallow it, like they're just too big and silly. And I think people have been like kind of trained to think that that's what you want because they see it at the grocery store. And often I think they just use like stew meat almost. It's bad. And you don't want to be eating. What's the point of getting a skewer if you got to eat it with a knife and fork after? It kind of defeats the purpose of meat on a stick. So I like to cut meats into small cubes, or alternatively, and I like doing this a lot, you slice meat really thinly into strips and then use like an accordion method to skewer them. So you can take like the first edge, poke it through, fold it over, poke it through, fold it over, poke it through, and etc. It creates a different kind of kebab eating experience and also helps the meat cook really evenly, and also allows for really good marinade penetration. So if you're marinating your meats, that's probably the best way to go. Fatty cuts like belly or shoulder can also be used if sliced really thinly and cooked a little more slowly. So cook it over like indirect heat and let that fat render. That could be really good too. Extra lean game cuts can be wrapped in caul fat, which is really nice, or interspersed on the kebab with small chunks of fat, like pork fat or something, to help base and moisten the meat. Since game can be so dry or so lean, adding a little extra fat can work really well. You can also use seasoned ground meat or sausage. And to do so, you don't want to use this on those bamboo skewers. You want like the flat metal skewer, and you kind of like shape them into long cylinders onto the skewer. It can be a little tricky still to use. So I find wrapping these in caul fat is a really good trick that helps retain the moisture and the shape of it. As the caul fat cooks, it will like kind of shrink and hold everything to that kebab really nice. Or to the skewer, I mean. Another trick is to be sure not to load the skewers from the very top to the very bottom, which I am been guilty of several times. Yeah, because often your grill can't perfectly accommodate the size of that skewer. So the middle cooks really fast and the ends are barely cooked, and then you're trying to like move them around. It's better if you just have them all kind of even and right where you're like judging from the size of your grill where your hot spots are. You can just kind of judge it for that. When it comes to mixing your proteins with vegetables, the question is to mix or not to mix. And for me, I'm a big proponent of not mixing my vegetables and meats on a skewer. I find it often leads to like a poor compromise of overcooked meat and undercooked veggies, or vice versa. Sometimes I can use like an aromatic like green onion or pineapple, just add a little extra flavor and stuff. But I don't like doing the mushroom, meat, pepper, onion, whatever. Like I never find those work in my opinion. So I like to skewer my vegetables on one skewer and skewer my meat on the other and let them cook even like that. But how do you feel about that, Justin?
Yeah, growing up, I definitely was taught the method of like, it was always like meat, onion, pepper, mushroom, tomato, which would be like a cherry tomato, which always fell apart and never like busted everywhere. And then as I've gotten older and the more that we've talked about it, I've been like, you know what, you're right. And I've shifted. So anytime I make skewers, it's generally all the same. Plus, with the way my family eats, with some of us eating meat and some of us eating fish, I generally kind of separate everything out so that everybody can take different things. And generally when we serve it, I just pull everything off the skewer because it's easier to serve that way anyway. And we do a lot of grilled foods in general, so it's really like a good option using the skewers when we have smaller cuts of meat, or if we want to have super juicy, and then just keeping them separate. I think is much easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you marinate your kebabs generally?
Yeah, generally I will marinate them and I'll let them set in the refrigerator kind of overnight or for a couple hours or 30 minutes if that's all I have at the very last minute. But overall, I think like kebabs are perfect candidates for that, just because of the different types of cuts and because you're cooking them really fast. We have a whole YouTube video talking about marinades in general, and like it's very exact principles and all that stuff, but at its base, what you want to use is you want to have an acid base. So think about vinegar, citrus juice, even yogurt carries some acid, which will help tenderize those tougher wild cuts. And one thing about like marinades is people tend to I believe that marinades are more badass than they really are. Well, like, they're really good and they carry flavor, but people will take like a big thick cut of meat and they'll throw it in a marinade and put it in a place for like, 6, 7, 8 hours, and thinking that it's going to penetrate the entire piece of meat and marinate everything. And it really doesn't. It really only penetrates about 1/8 of an inch into the meat. And you'll see that because if you've ever over marinated something, it'll have like that white, grainy, light color on the outside. And then if you cross cut it, you'll see like, oh, it didn't really actually get into it. So throwing meat in a Ziploc bag and letting it set, a thick cut of meat and letting it set for hours and hours isn't really good. But if you choose the right cut, you're going to get a good sort of base. But also you want to make sure that your marinade's balanced. So in addition to the acidic base, there we go, I can say it now. You'll want to put your marinade with some fat. You want to have acid, you want to have salt, and choose your aromatics. So like herbs, garlic, different types of spices, all those things come together to really do the job of what a marinade is going to do. And Wild Game's super lean, and you're using thin cuts when you're marinating, so you don't want to marinate it too long. 2 to 6 hours is usually a lot. But too long can make it really mushy, especially if you're using thinner cuts. You're going to lose all that structure completely because that acid is going to break down the protein and denature it, and you're not going to end up with a tender cut. You're going to end up with a mushy cut, which nobody really wants. No. Keeping the meat thin is really important for marinades. If you thread it onto the skewer, like we mentioned, accordion style is probably one of the best ways. I definitely like to marinate the meat both before and after I put it onto the skewer. So oftentimes what I'll do is I will cut all the meat pretty thin, throw it in the marinade, let it set for a little bit of time, and then I will take it and I will put it onto the skewers, and then I will put it back in the refrigerator and let it firm back up with all the marinade back on the top of it, so that it has time to sort of do that in its final form, and then also get it prepped for the grill, which is key in introducing the concept that you're going to pull your kebabs out and let them sit at room temperature for a little bit until they come back up, so that you're not ending up with like very cold kebabs going on a very hot grill. You're not going to get good, clean, even cooking. One thing I would say that whenever you are putting your meat into the fridge or on the counter or wherever you're at, use a non-reactive container. The best is probably glass. We've moved almost entirely away from plastic things at our house, just as a personal choice, but glass, ceramic, even food grade plastic is really good. That way you're avoiding those metallic flavors, you're avoiding any weird chemicals, or if you like your plasticware or anything, staining of sauces and stuff like that. So you want to make sure you pat your meat dry before you're grilling. This will help promote better searing and prevent flare-ups. I think that having some sauce on there is really key, but I think that accordion method lends really well to getting sauces into like the crevasses,
all the folds,
and all that, so that you can get them nice and seared on the outside. And then I would say too, that kind of goes back to make sure you have an oil element in there, because that's going to help promote that Maillard reaction with the meat and the protein too. So, and then you want to reserve some of your marinade before you're adding it to your raw meat, and this way that you can use it for basting or for dipping sauce later. So in reality, you're going to have like a recipe of a marinade, and you're going to divide it into thirds. You're going to divide one part for your actual marinating, you're going to divide one part for your basting, and you're going to have one as like a dipping sauce at the end, or a finishing sauce, which you can dump it over the top. So that is probably your best approach to make sure your kebabs are pretty saucy. But then also too, you want to make sure you cut your meat and veggies evenly so that they marinate and cook at the same rate on the skewer. And then we'll talk a little bit about cooking methods, but it's all about timing.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. and preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Adam, what are the best cooking methods for kebabs?
In my opinion, the best cooking methods altogether would probably be the grill over open flame or fire. I visited some place in the Middle East and Turkey, and you just see these guys with like long rectangular grills just grilling like 100 kebabs at a time, which is awesome to see. I don't have that at home, unfortunately, but those tend to be the best cooking methods. If you're going to use a grill, make sure you preheat thoroughly for a good sear, so don't just throw them on when you turn on the barbecue. Oil the grates or use grill-safe skewers to prevent sticking. You don't want all those skewers to stick. Use direct heat for a quick sear, or indirect for larger chunks or for tougher cuts. Like I mentioned, if you're using shoulder or belly, you want to use indirect heat or direct heat for a good sear on the loins. Some of the pros using grill is, provides an excellent char and smoky flavor, especially if you're doing it over charcoal. It's easy to control your heat zones. It's fast cooking for tender game cuts. It's usually just in your backyard, so you don't have to do much work to get it set up. Some of the cons, you can overcook smaller lean pieces pretty quickly. And you need to stick with it to avoid flare-ups, especially if there's oil in your marinade. Some people like using a smoker. I don't think it's great for kebabs. It's not really the place where you should be using it. But if you are going to try it out, make sure you use wood chips that complement wild game. So you're talking about like apple, hickory, cherry, mesquite. Keep the temps low and consistent, so that's under 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's probably the best for using like tougher cuts or pre-cooked skewers that need some like smoky flavor infusion rather than like an actual cooking technique. The smoker will provide that deep smoky flavor that everyone loves, but it takes a long time and there's no real browning or sear unless you finish with like a high heat step. So part of the loveliness of a kebab is the kind of the sear, charcoaly crunch of it, and you miss out on that with the smoker. Another option is using your broiler in the oven, which I've done before in winter days when the snow is stacked like 3 or 4 feet on my barbecue, and I don't want it to go outside at all. If you're going to use the broiler, you want to use a wire rack over a tray to allow air circulation. So you don't want the kebabs to be directly on the tray. You want to elevate them a little bit. Keep the skewers about 5 or 6 inches under the broiler element so they don't burn right away. And just hunker down. I just crouch in front of the stove and just watch it, because broilers burn fast. You can ruin your meat so fast, so just stick with it. Don't walk away. Some of the pros of broilers is that they're accessible year-round, obviously. It's just in your kitchen. Provides good, even browning on both sides of the kebab, but they lack that smoky or grill flavor. You got limited space. There's only so much you can do in your oven, and it smokes out your kitchen inevitably and sets your fire alarm off, and the kids are crying and the dogs are barking and you're running around snapping towels at the ceiling. It can be a little hectic. Lastly, and probably my very favorite cooking method for skewers is over a campfire or over a fire pit. It just has that rich, primal, smoky flavor. It's so much fun for outdoor backcountry cooking when you're camping or hunting or fishing. It provides like a memorable rustic experience. Like those are the times where I remember most, like cooking outdoors. It just really sticks with you in a lovely way. Unfortunately, it's harder to control the heat, and there's a high risk of burning or uneven cooking if you're kind of new to cooking over fire. You're going to want to let your wood burn down to hot embers before cooking. So we're not looking for a big roaring fire with flames licking and everything. That's going to just char your kebabs without cooking them properly. You want to use long metal skewers or a grill grate for safety, and so you don't drop all your stuff into the fire. You want to rotate everything frequently for even cooking and to avoid too much charring. And you're going to want to set up some different heat zones for faster and slower cooking. So spread that fire out, get the coals on one side so you can move stuff around. Like if one thing cooks faster than the other, one skewer cooks faster than the other, you can set it aside and keep cooking because things are going to be moving fast. But yeah, it's that just leads to the best tasting and the that rustic primal kind of experience, which I really love. So if you ever get the chance to cook, especially for camping or something, you can just pre-pack everything, pre-skewer them if you want. Yeah, it's so easy and so awesome. I think we're getting a time where we want to incorporate or learn how to incorporate wild game and fish into our kebabs. You got any tips for us, Justin?
Oh, man, do I have loads of tips. I don't know if they're going to be helpful, but I've got tips. No, just kidding. I think, man, I mentioned it before, and it just keeps coming back to my mind of the fact that, like, kebabs and skewers and wild game and fish are probably like the most natural pair of cooking methods for this type of cuisine, which is really, really phenomenal and really, really great when you think about it. So let's start off in the realm of birds. So I'm talking about wild turkey, pheasant, grouse. Grouse you can do a little bit on the more medium side for cooking because it's a darker meat, but definitely those lighter colored birds, wild turkey and pheasant, you want to make sure you're cooking them through. Ducks and goose breasts, you can cook them a little less so to medium rare, and they'll still be really phenomenal. Deer, elk, moose, all your ungulates, antelope, all those lumped in there. You're going to want to shoot for like the tenderloins, the loins, cuts from the sirloin. The round is really good. The different round cuts, not round in size, but round in placement. You want to make sure you're cutting them thin or into small cubes, and then you're best if you're going to cook them medium rare. You want a little bit of bite left on those cuts. Wild boar and bear, you're going to slice those thin and cook all the way through. I would almost caution folks who are going to think about skewering either of those and cooking them in kebabs because it becomes really challenging with cooking temps. I think that's that fun fact. Was Steve Ranella catching or contracting trichinosis was from undercooked wild bear out of Alaska. I think the story goes they were rushing to get a filming shot and it was starting to rain and their plane was arriving and all this other stuff, and they undercooked a skewer of bear meat in one of those early on episodes of Meat Eater, and that's how him and I think his entire crew and some guests contracted trichinosis, which was kind of a bummer. That's something I don't think over time it lessens, but it's still one of those things that's around. So just consider that when you're cooking, especially wild boar and bear, that you want to make sure you have a good temp reading on all those things. I recommend a meat thermometer to everybody for everything, even if you're going out camping or doing something. If you know you're going to be eating boar or bear, use a temperature gauge for sure. Small game like squirrels, iguanas, quail, you can marinate those and even skewer them whole, which is a very interesting concept. I'd say rabbit too would be that way as well. You just want to make sure you're going to kind of like splay them out, almost if you think a spatchcock manner, which if you're going to do anything like dove, quail, things like that, you probably want to do that for even cooking, but you could definitely do like a full rack of those and just kind of do the twisting method. Here's a fun fact. I'm in Hawaii now. So, Adam, have you ever heard of huli huli chicken?
I have, but I never tried it before.
Yeah, so it's phenomenal. I posted a cool story. I was at a street fair this weekend, and they had it's everywhere here. They have these little trailers with like grill pits on them, and they just got rotating rods on tons and tons of layers, and they just sell quarters of chicken. And it's a huli huli chicken, but huli huli in Hawaiian means to rotate. So you want to make sure that if you're doing things like quail and dove and larger birds that you're going to cook whole, that you huli huli. Make sure you rotate them. So offal like heart, kidney, liver can be cooked very quickly to medium over hot coals and seasoned heavenly. Heavenly. You can season both of those ways. It's going to turn out great. A little blessing.
If you want some heavenly seasonings, we have some available at the Harvest Nature Store.
Yes. They have the most heavenly of wild game seasonings. You're going to want to season them heavily and heavenly in order to balance out some of those bolder flavors that the organ meat carries. But switching over to fish, so your firm, meaty fish is going to be ideal. So you want something that doesn't flake apart on the grill. Think about shark, swordfish, salmon, tuna, cod loins, halibut, mahi-mahi. Those are all more firmer fish. I think some you'd probably want to avoid, like bass, perch, snappers, flounder, fluke. Some of those more flaky fish that you would generally see like broiled or pan fried. I feel like catfish would be a good one too. You could use the accordion method, I think, pretty well on some thinner catfish cuts. The other catfish cuts you could chunk and put on there as well. You want to make sure that they're large chunks so that the fish doesn't cook through before developing some char, and you want to avoid adding vegetables, which are going to take way longer to cook than the fish. And then marinades are always your friend, but caveat with fish is you want to keep your marinade time short. And this will be for the reason, as I mentioned previously, that you don't want them to be super mushy. Wild mushrooms like porcini, chicken of the wood, chanterelles, morels, blah. And other large species can be skewered and grilled. These are really good. We also have a wild mushroom blend. I think we're sold out of it right now, but maybe we have one bottle left. Be sure to cook your mushrooms all the way through. You don't want to eat wild raw mushrooms. I've seen too many news headlines of people serving raw wild mushrooms, and the end result is sometimes not great, so just avoid that. Cook them. Mushrooms can be marinated or heavily seasoned, and that makes them really tasty. To complement the flavors, look for particular pairings. Tons of good recipes on the Harvest Nature website and the Intrepid Eater website. You can also grill them, then marinate them after cooking for something kind of different and exciting. Really, really fun.
Yeah, all the folds kind of like when you marinate mushrooms after cooking, they still absorb a lot of that marinade, where meat will just kind of sit in it, where the mushrooms will keep absorbing it. So you can incorporate some flavors pre and post cooking, which I find really special for mushrooms.
And then you get some wild vegetables like wild asparagus or cattail shoots can also be skewered and grilled.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Gatorade is the #1 proven electrolyte blend designed to hydrate better than water. So you can lose more sweat and raise your game. Gatorade, is it in you?
So, do we want to dive into some recipes here? I think we've got time. Yeah, we've got time for some recipes. Let's do maybe 2 each. I think that'll get us there.
Sure. I'll start it off with one of my recipes that's available on the Harvest Nature website. And this is for tikka swordfish kebabs. So I had some nice swordfish given to me from a friend that he caught down in the Gulf, I think. And what I did, I just went like an Indian style kind of thing, and I marinated in... I cut the swordfish into large chunks. So when we were talking earlier about don't use large chunks for your kebabs, fish breaks that rule. First of all, because it's not chewy, so you can just eat them easily, even if it is a large cut. And also, like we mentioned, your fish, you want to develop some of that char before it cooks through all the way. So if you go really small with fish, it just kind of, it'll be a little wan, and I don't know, it's not great. So using large chunks works really good for fish. Basically made a marinade out of cilantro stems, green chilies, ginger, garlic, garam masala, lots of spices, chili powders, lime juice, and then all into some oil as well, into yogurt. Marinated them for a while. Spread it on just 3 big chunks for each. I think I used bamboo for this, but you could do metal ones as well. I did this recipe twice. I grilled it once and I broiled it at a different time, and they both worked excellently. And then you just serve them garnished with like some chopped cilantro leaves and a little more Kashmiri chili powder, which gives like a really cool bright red look to them. And yeah, they're just Absolutely delicious, really easy, really quick. I highly recommend this one.
So I'm going to be talking about these Japanese-inspired venison heart skewers. And, when most people think about wild game cooking, especially skewers, they think about steaks or thinly sliced meat or cubed meat. But I think more adventurously is the heart. And this is probably one of my favorite all-time ways to prepare the heart, just because it doesn't really matter the condition of the heart, because you're going to cut it down into strips and you end up with this like smoky, tender, and super flavorful dish that really honors sort of the whole holistic animal approach of cooking, but also it pulls in a lot of spirit from Japanese street food, which I think is really cool. And the whole like yakitori skewer culture in Japan is very, very cool and very, very exciting. So traditionally, yakitori chefs are going to use all the parts of a chicken. So yakitori lends itself to game bird, or I would say birds in general, but you could substitute for game birds. But in this adaptation, I'm pulling some of the same flavors and using it for the hearts on a deer, which is probably very common. I would say if you're a bird hunter as well, start stashing your hearts until you have a good pile of hearts, and then make up some skewers. It's often probably an overlooked item, maybe that you're tossing out, but definitely keep those. They'll be really good. But so this recipe you can use for venison or any type of upland game hearts. Really any type of animal hearts would be really, really good. So it's pretty simple what you're going to do. You just have your heart. Your hearts themselves, you're going to treat them sort of like that bell pepper method that we always talk about, where you're going to kind of core out the top. You're going to take out all the different flaps and ventricles and stuff inside, and then you're going to lay it out flat, kind of like a book. And then once it's there, you're going to cut it into thin strips, and you're going to use that accordion technique we were talking about. But really comes fun with this one is the marinade, and your main elements in this marinade are going to be soy sauce, sugar, fresh ginger, garlic cloves, sesame oil, rice wine vinegar, scallions, sriracha, and all that stuff. And you can follow the recipe, but you're going to create this 3-batch version of it, as I previously mentioned, where you're going to have some for marinating, some for basting, and some for finishing after, and serve it over rice with kimchi or pickled vegetables or any types of stuff, and you're just going to enjoy it. It's a really, really phenomenal, flavorful dish.
I love that so much. Hearts on skewers are great. I have a couple different recipes on my website, on the Intrepid Eater website as well. Mm-hmm. The yakitori style is probably the best you can do, but there's all sorts of cool stuff. You should never throw away your hearts.
Never.
So I'm going to do suya, which is West African. I kind of chose the Nigerian way of doing it, but each country has its own kind of different way. These are super popular as street food in West Africa. You can see them everywhere, apparently. Really delicious. And it's basically meat that's marinated in this combination of this peanut butter powder called kuli kuli. So not huli huli, but kuli kuli. And spices called yaji. And those are very, very hard to find. Unless you have West African grocers near you, it's probably going to be nearly impossible.
You know what? As an alternative, there is a peanut butter powder that floats around the health food stores that people use in like smoothies and shakes. And when I've made suya, I've used this peanut butter powder.
Oh, that's a good tip. Hot tip.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hot tip.
Yeah. So what I end up doing is just I used like an unsweetened natural peanut butter and some homemade blends, and kind of came up with something like it. The cool thing about these skewers is you can use pretty much anything, any meat. You could use beef, venison, goose breast. You could use all sorts of cuts. But one of my favorite cuts for making skewers is top sirloin. I like a little bit of bite to my meat. So, like a tenderloin, I find the texture a little boring, but top sirloin just has that perfect combination of tenderness with a bite to it that I really love. So that's what I used. I used venison top sirloin for this. And I used my homemade spice blend, which included ginger, paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, cayenne powder, and ground cloves. And those ground cloves really give that kind of interesting flavor to it, along with the unsweetened peanut butter. And you're marinating, mixing it all up, marinating, and then grilling. And it's once again, like all skewer recipes, it should be easy. These are easy and they're incredible, and they have a flavor that you've never tasted before, unless you've obviously eaten suya. But yeah, so different and good and approachable too. It's not going to be like weird flavors. It's a really cool, approachable new flavor for your skewers. I highly recommend trying that out.
Oh yeah, that sounds really good. I like the suya. I think in our upcoming cookbook project, there's one of those floating around, recipes as well. So I'm going to talk a wild turkey a little bit. So I've got a wild turkey souvlaki with the tzatziki sauce by Sean West. This is one of our recipes from back in 2021, and it's super flavorful. I love Sean's recipes. They're always really good, well great. Thought out, well flavored. So this one, you're going to take 2 pounds of wild turkey breast. You're going to cube it up. Make sure all your cubes are uniform in size. You're going to use olive oil, white vinegar, lemon juice, cloves, oregano, paprika, and a little S&P. And that's all going to go together for your marinade. So you want to marinate those for about 4 to 8 hours, or as much time as you have. As mentioned, take a little bit, reserve on the side for basting and for saucing, and I think you'll find yourself a little happier. Let's see, for your tzatziki sauce, it's going to be your standard. So Greek yogurt, olive oil, garlic, juice from the lemon, and cucumbers split and seeded, and then salted to taste. And that's going to combine together to make your delicious souvlaki, and you serve that over flatbread or rice or whichever way you want with the sauce, and you are going to find yourself very happy.
That's one of my favorite summertime easy dishes. Just grilled souvlaki with a little tzatziki and the salad or something is I don't know, summertime goodness to me.
I think I've got it on here. There's one recipe. Yep, there it is. Floating around Meat Eater website. Buffalo turkey sausage. These are like kebabs that are made using ground turkey, which is pretty phenomenal. And let me pull up. I'm talking here. So you got ground turkey, 3 strips of bacon chopped up, buffalo sauce, plus save some for basting, hot sauce, smoked salt, celery salt, garlic powder, smoked paprika, and a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And you're going to mix all those together and put them on your skewer in that the method where you're just squeezing along the skewer. And you're just going to cook them for about 5 minutes or so until everything's cooked all the way through. You'll flip them, make sure you cook it to 165 on the inside, let it rest, and then serve with your normal buffalo wing accoutrements such as celery, carrots, blue cheese dressing, all that. You could put it over rice or in a flatbread or anything like that, but that's a really really quick way if you've got just any sort of ground turkey hanging around that you could cook that up.
I've got some octopus thawing out right now. I think I'm going to do octopus skewers now that I had a whole plan for it, but I've scrapped that now, and I'm going to do octopus skewers tonight.
Love it. No, I think skewers overall are they're just great, man. We can't sort of harp on that enough as how really awesome they can be, and I think we've laid a good foundation for you for people to enhance your skewer game, as well as some really delicious recipes that'll help you guide through this pathway of cooking stuff on a stick. I don't know, Adam, you have any last thoughts, any last tips that come to mind for skewers?
I don't know. I think just like always, try something new. The thing I love about skewers is they're like people. It's the same but different across the whole world. It's every culture, every family, every region has their own version, and they're all kind of have the same base. And that base was formed when we were pre-human, and we're still cooking today. And I love that connection, that deep connection to food. I think skewers just really take on that whole thing, and it's kind of a romantic food for me for being so simple. But I recommend everyone break out some skewers and get grilling for while the summer is still here.
Yeah, that. I found it too. It's called a Spidey sandwich. They're from Broome County, New York. Yeah. It's Italian, not Greek. But there's a cool recipe of mine on Meat Eater website as well with turkey and some hoagies and delicious marinade, which is very similar to Greek. Same, but different. But no, it's a great approach to food. It's just really fun and easy to do, and it cooks quick, and you can serve a lot of people, and you can take delicious cuts, and they're tender and absorb a lot of juiciness from the marinade and quickly turn out a really great meal. You can get cooking out of the house if you're concerned about the heat inside the house in the summer, or if you're in the winter and you got a campfire going, you can throw that on really quickly and just make a cool meal. Or you can throw a whole fish on a stick and cook it over a hot rock next to the river and just enjoy your life. So whatever you do, I think skewers will find their way into your heart. Thanks everybody for listening. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to, punch that 5-star button, leave us a review, tell us that we're wrong or tell us that we're right. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Bye.